Welcome, everybody, to another episode and another week of To the Rack with Mac. I am one of your hosts, Nick Mac Daddy Mac. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Jeff, a.k.a. Basketball for Brains. What's up, Jeff? Welcome to another week, my man.
Hey, it's great to be here. We got a great guest coming up for everybody, BBallArchives. He knows his stuff, knows his game, so we're going to bring him in and bounce, what's going on in the NBA. Bounce that around and have some fun.
Absolutely. Like Jeff said, we've got a loaded show tonight, a couple topics to get to. And of course, our special guest, Rob, aka BBallArchives. Great content on TikTok. Make sure you go give him a follow. And we are coming to you this week. If you're watching us on YouTube right now at To the Rack with Mac on YouTube. And also, as we are every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on AWSM Radio. Shout out to everybody there, and thank you all for the support. We appreciate you very much. Now, let's dive into it. And the first topic me and Jeff want to get to tonight is a fiery and emotional one, at least for me, because Jeff, I'm steaming. I don't know if you could see the smoke.
Unload, amigo. Unload.
But I'm steaming. And that, of course, is about the All-Star game returns. And I feel like I'm like this every year. I feel like there's a couple of guys that are in there that don't really deserve it. But this year, more than ever, there's a couple of standout guys that really don't deserve it. Jeff, what is your first thoughts on the latest and, the final, almost the second to last All-Star game voting returns from the fans?
Oh, man, you want to throw it my way after all the passion and fire it's got you there? Let me say this.
I'm saving it.
Thing that I'll actually say that catches my eye first, it's not the things that upset me. It's just the things that I love to see. And the turnout of how many votes these players are receiving. LeBron James has nearly 7 million votes. I love it. I love how big the NBA has got it and continues to get. So in that regard, I love it. What you get, though, when that many people have a vote is there's a lot of people that probably shouldn't deserve votes. And I'm glad that it's a majority rules, because there are some big question marks on this list. And we'll get in on it. And I know you're going to hit on it. But Klay Thompson over Devin Booker?
Thank you.
Klay Thompson over Devin Booker? These people are killing me. And you know what? I appreciate the loyalty. I appreciate the fandom. But gosh darn it, when push comes to shove, Klay Thompson hasn't played in 2 years, and Devin Booker is coming off a finals run. Give the man his respect. There's got to be a line drawn somewhere. Oh, and by the way, Chris Paul at like number 6 or 7
behind Russell Westbrook. I'm sorry.
Behind Russell Westbrook. It's insulting. It's insulting. Chris Paul, folks, Chris Paul is a legitimate MVP candidate. Now, I know that he's not a favorite, but when you're the best player on the best team, guess what? You get to be considered that guy. So those are a couple of things that kind of get me rolling. But I do want to give a shout out on how many votes these players are getting. It's pretty crazy to think that they're getting 5, 6, 7 million votes.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say, I think they got some of the top 3 guards they got right. Ja, Luka, Steph. I think that's absolutely perfect in the Western Conference. Also for the front court, have no problem with LeBron, have no problem with Jokic being there, of course. But Andrew Wiggins at third. Andrew Wiggins is the third leading vote getter in the West in the front court. Are we kidding?
The Warriors nation is strong, yo.
Listen, they are. But apparently so is Lakers nation. As we mentioned, Russell Westbrook is not only ahead of Chris Paul. Russell Westbrook is ahead of Donovan Mitchell. Russell Westbrook is ahead of Damian Lillard. Russell Westbrook is ahead of Anthony Edwards. Now, I don't know about you basketball fans, but this year, you're telling me you'd rather see Russell Westbrook out on the floor again with LeBron James than Anthony Edwards, who is setting the league on fire in his second year? That is a bold-faced, flat-out lie. And the only reason Russell Westbrook has that many votes is because he has that LAL next to his name. And that's period, point blank. Now, back to the front court. Here's another big issue I have in the West. Carmelo Anthony has the 7 most votes of the Western front court, ahead of Karl Anthony Towns, ahead of Rudy Gobert, and ahead of DeAndre Ayton. a bench role player, which is what Carmelo is now, off the bench for a 500 Lakers team has more votes than Rudy Gobert, DeAndre Ayton, and Karl Anthony Towns.
Well, that's why they've made some adjustments to how much weight the fan votes get too, because Carmelo Anthony being in this conversation, it's silliness. Like, it just,
I haven't gotten to the East yet, Jeff.
It's worse than Klay. I'll tell you, it's worse to have Carmelo Anthony in here than Klay Thompson, because Carmelo Anthony is playing and he is not playing at all-star level. You know, Klay Thompson, at least I can pretend he hasn't played enough. I can at least have a delusional thought that maybe he'll be there. But what delusional thought are you having with Carmelo Anthony? He's out there playing. But you know, I understand that it's not that people thinking he's an all-star. It has all to do with love and the name and the brand, and you know what, Melo's getting some love.
Listen, we're gonna get, when the guest comes on, when our guest Rob, aka BBallArchives, we got a lot more to say about Klay Thompson and the whole rotation with the Golden State Warriors. So stay tuned for that conversation too, folks. What were you gonna say, Jeff, before I move on to my problems with the Eastern front court?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to lead you off with the best thing I've seen about the All-Star voting is the front court in the Eastern Conference. And the three guys that should be leading the way are leading the way in Durant, Giannis, and Embiid. So I appreciate what they're bringing to the table. And it was like, okay, you guys of all the messes going on in there, that front three on the front court in the Eastern Conference, that is on point.
Yeah, but I got to say, they are completely whiffing on the guards. And let me just say, for Derrick Rose and Kyrie Irving.
Oh, my gosh.
For Derrick Rose and Kyrie Irving to be ahead of players like Fred VanVleet and Darius Garland is an absolute travesty. And it's robbing two spectacular young players of their first All-Star bid. As far as the fan goes, we gotta start coming together as an NBA community and rewarding these guys, whether they're the big flashy names or not. If you really dive into what Darius Garland is doing this season, Darius Garland is doing things in Cleveland that only LeBron James has done.
Yeah,
we have to think about that for a minute. No one thought that this Cleveland Cavaliers team would be where they are. They thought Jared Allen and Evan Mobley together wouldn't work. Colin Sexton goes down. Darius Garland has to step up, and that he has. They are a winning team again. They have surpassed their win total from last year already.
Yeah.
They are just on an up and up streak right now. The trajectory is crazy. Sky's the limit for that very young franchise. Darius Garland is being robbed by the fans, in my opinion.
What are the fans missing on this guy? First off, Jarrett Allen has more votes than Garland. Jarrett Allen's got 500,000 votes. Garland's got 340,000 votes. Maybe the position, because it doesn't run as deep, you know, so some people are trying to get him into the starting lineup, whatever it may be. But you know what? Garland is the best player on that young Cavs team right now. And, you know, I was actually just having an interesting conversation with a friend of mine. And it's the idea of, you know, I thought Sexton was going to be the guy in Cleveland, especially the way last year started. It was like, okay, Colin Sexton is the guy the Cavs are going to build their team around. But what I've seen, even though I view Sexton as a guy with higher potential, like he's got more talent, his ceiling is higher, Garland has actually stepped into that leadership role. And this young Cavs team that's playing very well, Garland is the guy that is leading the way in that front. So now I'm thinking, okay, I can build around Garland. Let me maybe shop Sexton around.
Exactly.
And let's bring in another complementary piece, because I will say this: Garland, Jarrett Allen, and Evan Mobley, I don't know if I view that core as a contender core in 5 to 7 years. I think they need, and it mostly has to do with just like who's their lead dog. And if Darius Garland's that guy, maybe they're not entering contender status, but gosh dang, they've got a strong core. And if they were able to add a big piece and get something out of Colin Sexton, I would be scared of the Cavs in a few years.
Well, listen, and we're talking about all the great things that Darius Garland is doing, and it's the maturity and the leap he's taken this year that has really impressed me. When he is struggling shooting the ball and he is not scoring, at a pace that the Cleveland Cavaliers need at that time, he has been tremendous and one of the best in the league at making up for it with his playmaking and his defense. In his last 15 games, he's averaging over 1.2 steals per game, I believe, over 19 points a game, over 10 assists. Yeah. I mean, his ability to create not only for himself, but for his teammates at this age and being thrust into this situation so early in his career has been tremendously impressive, period. And I don't really think the Cavs could have asked for more out of Darius Garland, especially this season. And the other guy that I think is being overlooked, but he started getting more votes, and he has more votes than Garland, but he still has less votes than, I believe, Kyrie Irving and Derrick Rose, which is just, it irks me, is Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam have really come on for the Raptors. We might get into them a little later on, but VanVleet's play has been amazing. He's shooting the ball incredibly this year. His efficiency's up. His turnovers are down. He's looked more relaxed with that role at the helm of the Toronto Raptors.
And I got to go a different direction. I'm kind of getting tired of hearing about how disrespected all the Raptors players are being. The Cavs.
They're not world beaters. They're not world beaters by any means.
They're not, and I can appreciate that. But the Cavs have shown me something this year that I'm like, no matter what, I'm like, I have to get a Cleveland Cavalier into the All-Star game. They've earned it. They're the 6th seed. I look at the Raptors at number 8, and I'm like, why? I don't know if I have to get a Toronto Raptor into this All-Star game. And feel like that's the case. I need Jason Tatum in the All-Star game. I'm looking at Bradley Beal, Trae Young. All the guys I just said are in lower seeds than the Raptors right now. And I'm like, I'm taking all those guys over FVV and Siakam.
I mean, all right. Well,
if FVV makes the All-Star game, who doesn't make the All-Star game? And I'm not going to like that answer.
Well, I'll throw out something for all my listeners and for our guest who's going to be joining us in just 1 or 2 minutes here, folks. Rob, aka BBallArchives, is really excited about that. But I believe LaMelo is being a little overrated at this point. But we might be able to get into that in a little bit. I mean, listen, when I say somebody's overrated, that doesn't mean I think that they stink, right? I just think that somebody who's they've made this kid like the media darling. He can do no wrong, and it just irks me the wrong way. And every once in a while, you get a guy. Every era has that guy, 1 or 2 guys that become this media darling, and it irks the hell out of you. And that's LaMelo Ball for me. So we can get into that a little later. But at this time, I want to bring on our esteemed guest, over 12,000 followers on TikTok, former college hooper, Rob, aka BBallArchives. He's just going to come in here right now. How you doing tonight, my man?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me, Nick. Jeff, nice to see you again.
You too, my friend. Yeah, it's exciting to have you on here. We know you're a big Spurs guy. I like that you got Tim Duncan nicely in display right behind you.
Oh, yeah, had to do it.
So we'll definitely talk about them. So, yeah, you guys, we got a good one here. In fact, how I met him, it was Robert Horry, right? You said Robert Horry is the luckiest player in NBA history. Now, that's not the conversation we're going to get into, but what I can appreciate about you is you had the conversation, and it's been nice getting to know you a little bit. So glad to have you here.
Absolutely. Well, thanks y'all for having me. I've checked out multiple episodes, and I'm looking forward to getting into some of these topics we're going to talk about.
Absolutely, yes, man. And it's a pleasure to have you here. To the Rack with Mac every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, AWSM Radio at awsmradio.com. Over 50K listeners monthly. Let's go. We're getting into it tonight with Rob, aka BBallArchives. And I don't know if you heard the conversation backstage, maybe a little bit between me and Jeff, but we were talking about the atrocities that are brought forth by the fan voting in the All-Star game. And one of the biggest examples of that we pointed out, and we want to see if you agree, is Klay Thompson being over a guy like Devin Booker.
Oh yeah, that's just and he's what he's fourth on the guard list. Oh my goodness. It's I mean, I understand everyone is really swept up in the hype about him coming back. It's a really great story. And I don't want to take anything away from that because he was gone for a very long time. But at the end of the day, this needs to be about quality. Who is playing the best now on the best teams? And frankly, he's going to be sitting out. He's going to have some restricted minutes. And I just don't get that. But honestly, there's all kinds of issues all over the West that I have problems with. So, like, and Andrew Wiggins at third. Oh my goodness.
Golden State comes out in droves, man. Those Golden State Warriors fans from all over the world, they come out by the millions, apparently.
I think so. There just must be a little sprinkle of delusion in California right now when it comes to All-Star voting. I'm serious, just because it's Warriors and Lakers. I don't get it.
Well, let's not pigeonhole California as the only place where these Warriors fans are. You're right. When you come off the 5-year window that they just had, it is global. Globally, there are Warriors. And you know what I love about the global fandom is I swear, outside of the US, they care more about skill than just about anything. So a guy like Steph Curry, who's kind of an everyday kind of guy, like you're like, hey, I could do that, I could do what he does, and it's just there's this international connection. And you know what? The Warriors have the brand behind it, and the fandom has come strong for these All-Star votes.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
And when you see a guy like Steph Curry going through the slump and the struggles he's going through right now, you can really see where those fans, when they come out, it's to defend their guys. Klay Thompson not playing the best coming off, in the 6 games since he's come back. They're out there defending their guys. Of course, you see it, Wiggins third in the All-Star voting. It's just absolutely amazing, the global reach that the Golden State fans have. But like you said, not the only problem with the West fan voting. And I know we just had this conversation, folks, but I got to get Rob's thoughts. Russell Westbrook over Chris Paul.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's another head scratcher right there, especially because, Chris Paul is playing insanely efficient basketball. He's averaging some of the highest assist totals he's had over the past several years. I know his scoring yeah. Oh yeah. And it's even high for Chris Paul standards, which is saying a lot. But yeah, and he's playing so efficient that to have a guy who's slumping and shooting as poorly as Westbrook to be over him is there just has to be something tweaked about the All-Star voting. I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm not gonna propose any grand plans or anything, but it needs to be examined just a little bit.
Exactly.
I will propose something out here. I think it's a really simple idea. A minimum amount of games played. Listen, if you play less than half of the games, you're not eligible for the All-Star game. It's simple. It's easy. I don't know what else,
Sure as hell works for me, because over in the East, you got Kyrie Irving.
Without getting complicated. And Nick, just so you know, Chris Paul is putting out those high assist numbers. First time he's been over 10 assists since 2016. So it's been a number of years for that 10 assists per game number for Chris Paul.
But Rob said, insanely efficient basketball. Some of the most efficient basketball we've seen him play. The mid-range is crazy. And we're going to get into the Phoenix Suns, but I want to switch things back up to the Golden State Warriors. We were talking so much about their global reach and all of that. I proposed something to Jeff this week, and we're going to get into this right now. And I'm just going to come out with it. I know it's been 6 games. I know we have not seen Draymond, Steph, and Klay on the court together yet. And we don't know when we will, because we don't know how serious this Draymond injury is, whether they're kind of flaking it up for the media. It doesn't sound like he'll be back before All-Star break. We just found out Durant also won't be back till after All-Star break too.
Right,
so that's big news for the Nets. But back to the Golden State Warriors, Klay Thompson needs to come off the bench. And here's why I will say that. the rhythm that this team was in early on in the season consisted of, yes, of course, great, efficient, and smart offensive basketball, but it was the energy on the defensive side that was really carrying them. And Jordan Poole was actually a big part of that on both sides of the ball. And Jordan Poole has lost his rhythm behind Klay Thompson right now. In 3 games off the bench behind Klay Thompson, he finished with 5 points in each of those games and like 1 rebound and 1 assist, I think he was averaging. In the 3 games since Klay Thompson has had the soreness in his knee, he has started and he's put up 20 points in each of those games. I think they need those kind of performances from Jordan Poole, especially right now with Draymond out. I think GP2 is still recovering from a minor injury. Steph is going through the worst shooting slump of his entire career. And I don't know when that's going to fix itself. It's like I keep waiting for it, and it's just not happening. But what are your thoughts on that, Rob? And then we'll get to Jeff.
Well, I think it makes sense from multiple standpoints. I mean, you hear those words, Klay coming off the bench, and it doesn't sound right coming off the tongue. But there's so many times and so many ways that your team can be laid out where you need that spark off the bench. You need that player to come in and play 25 minutes in areas within the game when, maybe Steph is a little bit tired and needs to come out and isn't playing as well, which has been very, very abundant lately. So I could see that. And especially when he's nursing an injury and, he sat out back-to-back nights, rehabbing that from still from that surgical repair. So
Yeah.
I think that it could be really beneficial for him to come off the bench, and I always got to bring my Spurs back into it. That's exactly what we did with Manu for so many of our successful teams. In order to get that spark, it wasn't like we didn't. It's not like he oh yeah, of course, I have to.
Yeah,
it wasn't
perfect.
like it wasn't like he didn't have the skill to be in our starting lineup, but we just knew that team needed that spark off the bench. And who's to say Klay Thompson couldn't be that this season?
No,
I love it, Rob. I mean,
Absolutely.
great name drop. And it's not just a name drop because everybody should love Manu. If you don't love Manu, you don't love basketball. That's just my opinion on it. But the reason I love it, and I think you'll appreciate this, you being a former player, but this is a lesson I learned in Portland because it happened firsthand with our guards. It's not who starts the games, it's who finishes it. That's why I love the Manu drop, man. Manu was in there at clutch time when the game mattered most. Now, the reason I say I witnessed it firsthand is because here in Portland, Damon Stoudemire, Mighty Mouse, pretty good baller himself. He was starting point guard for our team, and we were very good. That was with Brian Grant, Scottie Pippen, Rasheed Wallace, Arvydas Sabonis. We were contending for the Western title. So Damon Stoudemire was the starter of that team, but Greg Anthony was the man that was finishing those games. And it became a problem in Portland. And Damon spouted his frustrations. He's like, I want to finish these games. I got to be out on the court. So that mentality of like, it's not who starts, it's who finishes. I'll take that to the bank every time when I'm thinking about, hey, I want to be in there during winning time. So I'm with you. I had the gut reaction. Nick, you're telling me Klay Thompson coming off the bench? The disrespect. This is a champion, man. This is a champion. So I hear that and it's just like, oh, that doesn't sit right. But then I got to think about it for a sec. And you know what? The thing, other than all of the things that we just talked about, the thing that keeps me being like, you know what? Maybe it's that the Warriors were playing so dang good. If they were a 6 seed, 7 seed, put Klay in the lineup, get yourself boosted, work your way up. But that was not the case. They were at the top of the Western Conference standings. If having Jordan Poole in the starting lineup is going to help his game, and Klay Thompson still is in there at clutch time finishing games, I think I can get on board with that, which would not have been my gut reaction.
Well, I will say this.
That's the best of both worlds.
Tonight, Klay Thompson is starting against the Mavericks, and Jordan Poole is.
I know it.
The bench.
Yeah.
And you know what? You hear a soreness in his surgically repaired knee that he just missed 2 years of his career playing basketball because of that and an Achilles injury, and you hear that there's soreness in that knee, I don't care what Steve Kerr says to the press. I don't care what this team says publicly. There is concern. There is concern with if there are only 6 games you hear about the soreness coming back. And I know that's probably normal, a little bit of wear and tear. It's going to get to him a little bit. But even so, I don't care what they said publicly. There's definitely concern there. But we'll see how it plays out tonight. Mavericks are rolling. I have to add that in there. I am a Dallas Mavericks fan. 9 out of their last 11. Luka playing tremendous basketball. Last thing I will say about the Golden State Warriors and this whole situation. By the way, another name drop for you. That is how Tayshaun Prince earned his way with the Detroit Pistons as well.
There you go.
He earned his way off the bench with that squad, and it turned them into a champion. If you remember correctly.
I am trying to remember it correctly, and I always pictured Tayshaun Prince as a staple of that starting lineup. I'm
pretty sure he started coming off the bench during that regular season.
Maybe
then,
okay. He might have.
And then he worked his way into the starting lineup.
Yeah,
but he brought that spark.
Now I got something to check out after the show. I got to double check.
Yeah, please fact check me on that. But I'm pretty sure Tayshaun Prince was coming off the bench. I hope I'm not wrong.
That is a great name drop, by the way. Love the name drop.
I just love that squad. It's probably my favorite team of all time. The Pistons squad.
That
Wallace.
04 Pistons team was tough. Oh wow. Talk about teams you just would not want to just play. I can't think of another player I would want to see down low in the paint other than Ben Wallace.
He scares the crap out of me, dude.
Yeah.
He was just a brick wall and probably, easily one of the most underrated defensive players ever. But we'll get to that conversation another day. Now we're going to get into Rob's part of the show. And I'm actually excited to talk about this because there's a lot of guys on the San Antonio Spurs that I could talk about for days. I really like the young group they got over there. But Rob, your San Antonio Spurs coming on another disappointing season. Despite the amazing play of DeJounte Murray, easily one of my favorite young players in the league, now averaging nearly a triple-double. But the first question I got for you is, we are headed towards the end of an era, and that is the Greg Popovich era. And I want to get your initial thoughts, saying goodbye to Pop. What's it going to mean as a lifelong Spurs fan, as a diehard, and what does it mean moving forward for the Spurs?
Well, first and foremost, I believe that Greg Popovich is the greatest coach of all time. I understand that there is a layer of bias to that, but I truly think that he achieved the most with the least amount of talent. And that's not to belittle the players on the Spurs, but yeah, it will certainly be the end of an era. I grew up, I was just 10 years old when we won that first championship in '99, and I remember going downtown and celebrating because I just lived about 15 minutes away from it was the Alamo Dome at the time, not the AT&T Center. And so I remember those days, and it's very, very different now. And I hate to see Pop have to go out this kind of way, because I wished so much more for him, and I wish that he could have gone out a champion, kind of like Red Auerbach, and leave on a W. But ultimately, I think whenever the whole Kawhi situation happened, and I don't want to harp on that too much at all because it's already been talked to death, but I think that was kind of his safety net being pulled out from underneath him, his kind of I guess his fail-safe plan that he was leaving the next generation of Spurs coaches and players with, and he was kind of hoping Kawhi was going to be a lifelong guy with us, and unfortunately that didn't happen. And so I feel like Pop, he's going to have mixed feelings leaving the team in the way it is, but there's nothing more he could have given the team. There's nothing more he could have given San Antonio. He is an absolute legend, and I'm going to end it by saying I still think he's the greatest coach of all time, hands down. I think me and Jeff are in agreement with you.
I am in total agreement. He is the greatest coach ever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that I could hear the conversation for Phil Jackson. I could hear the conversation for Auerbach. I'll even hear Pat Riley potentially, but it's at the end of the day, I'm going with Popovich when I'm talking about leadership, X's and O's, player development, actually caring
Yes,
about
yes, and
players
yes.
on off the
Check,
court. Oh
check,
man,
check. Check, check,
yes,
check. Absolutely. And you know what? I
Popovich.
think Pop and his coaching style and what was the best about him was his ability to get the absolute best out of guys like Bruce Bowen, like Tony
Oh
Parker, like we
yeah.
said, Manu Ginobili, even Tim Duncan. You know, his ability to get the absolute best at all times from the star player, TD down to the water boy. I'm serious because
Oh yeah.
you listen to older players and those guys from those days talk about Pop's coaching style. There really was like a militant efficiency to it, and they respected him and how much they admire and respect Pop. It's just, it speaks volumes. Of course, I never heard it quite like that for a coach. The respect from the former players is that just you hear about it, but there's at a different level for Pop.
Oh
It is.
yeah. Oh
Go
yeah.
ahead, Rob.
No. Go ahead. I can honestly, if you get me talking about Popovich and the Spurs, I'll take up the whole. I'll take up the whole
Hey, I can
show.
appreciate that. There's a
We can
lot
appreciate
to
that
appreciate
fandom.
about Pop. So I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Like when you're talking about like him compared to Phil Jackson, I'm sorry, but Phil Jackson coached Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Scottie Pippen, and Michael Jordan. You're going to look at the talent that Greg Popovich coached, and you know what? Tony Parker, late first round pick. Manu Ginobili, second round pick. Kawhi Leonard traded. He was like number 15 pick. So the internal debate, you guys nailed it. I don't need to
Hey, we can beat the dead horse all we want. But anyway.
We could. So Pop is the best. I think we all agree that he actually is the best. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I'll say this about him leaving. You don't know. It's just hindsight. I'm not saying he should have left a couple years ago, because I had no reason to rush Pop out. But I'm kind of wishing maybe 3 years ago he would have just gone on his way and ended on a higher note. But not in the sense that, like I said, I'm not trying to push him out the door. It's just hindsight where I'm like, these last couple of years haven't really been great. And Popovich has earned so much more than how it's kind of finishing off here. But that's sports. What are you going to do about it,
Right.
And
We were the Spurs were absolutely blessed for over 2 decades. So if we're destined to have a few bad years and a couple of hiccups like that, then we're honestly luckier than most.
once again,
no doubt. I mean, you probably know this, but the San Antonio Spurs actually have the greatest winning percentage in the history of the NBA. And that was not before Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich. That's mostly because of. So they actually are the most winning team in the history of the NBA.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I saw that stat floating around not too long ago. Once again, folks, this is To the Rack with Mac. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Mac, Daddy Mac, alongside Jeff, aka Basketball for Group Brains, with our special guest, Rob, aka BBallArchives. We're here live every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on AWSM Radio and AWSMradio.com. Continuing with the Spurs talk, I alluded to it a little bit, but with that changing of the guard, so you will, from Pop to whoever's replacement shall be, you've got some decisions to make with this young team. And that is whether you want to continue to build with what you got here, or do you let go of some of these assets and let this new regime come in?
Okay, hold on, Nick. Before we get into the players, I do have a question for Rob. Becky Hammon, is she going to get the spot? How do you feel? Yay or nay? Because I love her.
We actually got rid of her. She ended up signing. I honestly can't remember who she signed with, but she ended up signing with, I think, taking a head coaching G League job. I need to confirm that, but okay. I think that she's no longer with the organization, and I was kind of shocked because I know, Pop spoke so highly of her, and I know, she's a former player, so I know she knows the X's and O's of the game and what it takes to win. So it's I was kind of hoping that she was being groomed to be the first, and that certainly would be a
Maybe
monumental
this is
moment.
part of the master plan. Go get some
Maybe.
head coaching experience. When Pop leaves, we'll bring you back in. No, you know what? I'm a little ashamed of myself. I didn't realize it, but I just checked it out. And yes, she's the head coach of the Las Vegas Aces.
There we go. There we go. That's what it is.
So very, very good that she's a head coach role. Maybe she's getting more experience like that under her belt. But I thought there was some grooming going on. It's like, just pass the torch.
Yeah.
It'll be really nice. Here you go.
Guys, just want to let you know we have about 9 minutes left in the show here, so I do want to get going with some of these potential moves besides Becky Hammond. Real quick, is there one other name floating out there that you could possibly, as a Spurs fan, you're like, yeah, I want that guy?
Oh, coach wise?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. To be brutally honest, I've had so many player desires that a coach is the last thing I'm thinking of. I honestly don't want to. I honestly don't want to give up Popovich just yet.
Okay, we can appreciate that.
No worries. So yeah, let's get into the potential rebuilding era of the San Antonio Spurs. I want to get your thoughts. This young core: DeJounte Murray, KJ, Keldon Johnson. I've heard Jakob Poeltl's name being floated in trade rumors, of course, all over the place. But then you got guys like Derek White, Lonnie Walker, even Vasil, and you might even want to throw Eubanks in there. I don't know. I don't know much about Eubanks. I really just pay attention to DeJounte and KJ and even Lonnie Walker. But what are your thoughts on those guys, and what are your thoughts moving forward with them? Are they on the move, in your opinion, or do you try to build with this roster?
Well, I think a couple of the guys are going to have to be on the move. I think that we're paying Keldon too little of money, and he's improved too much over the past calendar year to really keep him at that price. So I think his next contract is going to put us in a position to where we're not going to be able to keep him. And but I think that we're going to do just about everything we can to build around DeJounte. I think that's kind of what Coach Pop is sort of sending. He's sending that signal right now. I really think that we should get rid of Jakob. I think that he's got really good value right now. His PER is off the charts, and he's been a more solid rim protector than usual. And to be brutally honest, I don't think he's going to keep it up. So I think that we should kind of unload him whenever we've got some good value right there. But as far as young core, I would really only view DeJounte as keeper. Everyone else is I hate to say it, but fairly expendable at this point.
Absolutely.
Nick, how do you feel about that? Are you building a team around DeJounte?
Actually, yeah, and that's what I wanted to get into. DeJounte Murray is easily one of my favorite young players in the league right now, and he's up for most improved. He's got to be top 5 for most improved player in the league, in my opinion. I know there's other guys that we're thinking are ahead of him. Obviously, Ja Morant, obviously Miles Bridges, but DeJounte Murray, in my opinion, is 3. He's got to be. He's averaging nearly a triple-double, 19 points, 8.5 rebounds, 9 assists. The kid's playmaking has become incredible. Easily top 2, top 3 defensive point guards in the league. He's right there with Drew Holiday, in my opinion. So I think you have to build around a guy like that. When you have a piece like that, and you have the ability with pieces around him and some assets to maybe move in turn for better pieces to build around him, and probably a damn good draft position, I think, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, you have to attack that. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back here to the Rack with Mac, more with Rob, aka at BBallArchives, when we come back to the Rack with Mac here on AWSM Radio and YouTube.